Picture this. You wake up in a cozy, sunlit space, surrounded by smart, stylish design that makes every inch count. The cost of this home? Well, it's considerably lower than traditional homes, making it an affordable consideration whether you are looking to enter into the real estate market, downsize from a larger space, or perhaps you are even looking to create a secondary living unit to rent out for additional income. Or maybe you need more space for an office or a workshop. Your home, it's not just a place to live, but it's a testament to ingenuity and simplicity. These options are not a dream. What are we talking about? It's the reality of living in a tiny home. Have you ever wondered about the tiny home movement and the logistics of living in such a compact space? Curious? If you are anything like me, you probably have a ton of burning questions. What exactly are tiny homes? How big, or should I say how small are they? How can they be used? What are the features within a tiny home? Where can I place my tiny home? What is the cost of a tiny home? And most importantly, what is it really like to live tiny? In today's podcast of Realty Bites Conversations on Real Estate and Lifestyle, we're diving deep into these questions and more. We have a fascinating discussion lined up with two incredible guests who are in the forefront of the tiny home movement. Joining us are Aura Padar and Wendy Wilcox from Habitat 28. And they'll be sharing their expertise and experiences, giving us an inside look at what it really means to live big in a tiny house. I'm your host, Evelyn Lopes, and I'm thrilled to have you with us. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and join us as we explore the big possibilities of living in a tiny space. So good morning and welcome, Aura and Wendy, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I am actually so excited about today's conversation about tiny homes because it's been a conversation that I've had with fellow realtors and with clients alike as they're looking for options for different types of ways that they can live. I think most of us have these preconceived notions about tiny homes, and today's conversation will definitely shed some light on the tiny home movement. So thank you so much for being here. And maybe we'll start with just a little introduction about who you are and what you do. So Aura, we'll start with you.
Hi, Evelyn, and hi, everyone. My name is Aura Padar. I am one of the owners and partners at Habitat 28 Tiny Homes, a modular home builder in Brantford, Ontario. We are a full factory, CSA certified and OBC compliant, and we build out tiny homes, which can be used as standalone or different modules can be combined, and you can build a house as big as you like.
Okay. And Wendy, welcome. And if you can share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having us again. I'm in sales. All I like to do is make people happy because I can provide what they are looking for right now. Sales has been my life. Sales and special events and fun things and talking.
And Aura, I'm curious, what inspired you to get involved with tiny homes and start this company that's focused on manufacturing and selling tiny homes?
Habitat 28 was born and developed by two construction and real estate entrepreneurs that have been in the business for over 25 years in residential and commercial construction and development and sales. In the last few years, we have noticed that the industry is going not in the best direction, not in the most sustainable, and not in the most eco-friendly, and not in a most affordable and easy attainable for younger families and older individuals especially. We notice that the cost of living is getting out of hand. People cannot afford homes. 78.2% Canadians right now cannot afford a single detached house. It takes 5 people working full-time to carry one house. So we started looking at more sustainable and more affordable ways and better housing solutions for everyone to provide options for people so that they can actually live with dignity and enjoy their life and still have enough money to feed their kids and put away some for their retirement.
And how long have you and Habitat 28 been serving the public?
The builder has been in business for 27 years, and I have been in interior design and sales for 7 years now. And Habitat 28 started in 2022, and we opened our factory doors. It was the concept of in 22. We were working on it. It was COVID times, a lot of brainstorming and working from your computer. And we opened our factory in 2023, and we started sales in 2023 as well.
Okay, great. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in the tiny home market?
The biggest challenge right now is the lack of legislation and the lack of uniform rules and acceptance by the municipalities. Even though the bill was passed in 2022 called Bill 23 to give Canadians many more housing options and convert single family residential zoning into 4 or 5 even units if you are in Toronto. However, the implementation of this law was left for municipal officers, and a lot of them are lacking and they have no knowledge, they have no training. A lot of applications are left. They don't really know exactly what to do. Even though they should be allowing this and they know that this should be allowed, they don't know how to process these inquiries. They don't know the questions. They don't know the setbacks. They don't know the bylaws. And that is a big challenge. We do have the good product and we have a huge demand from the people, but the legislation is lacking on the municipal level.
I guess the lacking in the bylaws and the legislation, as you said, is a function of tiny homes being a new concept. Would you attribute it to that, or would you say it's something else?
It's not a new concept. It's just the way they have been allowed to be used. Tiny homes have been around for a long time. The movement of going tiny is quite a few years old, and it started off as a really alternative way of living. People started looking at options where they just wanted to live off the grid. They wanted to do the permaculture and the homesteading and things like that. That's what started the tiny home movement. And most of those tiny homes were on wheels back then. However, since then, tiny homes have evolved and now they are on foundation and they are built to the code. They are built for 4-season living. They have heating, they have cooling, they have full comfortable kitchen. They have everything you may need, it's just in a smaller footprint. And now they are allowed in pretty much every single backyard of every municipality. They are also allowed in many different municipalities as a primary dwelling. So if you are looking to buy a house, but you don't have $1 million, you can go to Port Hope, for example, and secure yourself a lot for $150,000. And place your house for another $150,000, and in $300,000 you have a house,
which is more affordable for the average person.
Exactly, it's less than a 1-bedroom condo.
Right. So, what is a tiny home? If you had to, describe to our audience a tiny home, how would you do that?
A tiny home is basically a house that is small. It's usually under 400 square feet, and it could be either on wheels or on foundation.
Okay.
That is a tiny home.
And what's the difference between the tiny homes that you manufacture and other types of smaller homes?
Our tiny homes are built with innovative construction technology. We have a very unique structure that we use. It's a steel and wood blended frame. We also build our units are fully built out in the factory, and they are being installed on either foundation or helical piles. And we build with CSA certification and OBC compliance, and they are permitted as structures in everywhere in Ontario and Quebec. What sets us apart is a high level of quality. We build out our units as luxury hotel suites. We have extremely large windows. We have skylights with automated blinds. We have high-end kitchen. We have luxury hotel-like bathrooms. So when you walk in, you actually are pretty wowed when you walk into one of these units and you turn around. You can't believe that you're standing in 340 square feet unit, number one. And number two is all the finishes and all smart home technology. You can control the whole house from your phone. That we put into it. It really sets us apart from the competition.
Okay. And I heard you mention a couple of times CSA. What is CSA?
It's the Canadian Standards Authority. It takes about a year of rigorous audits and certifications and continuous visits from the CSA authorized inspectors to come and audit our processes and manufacturing and materials and labor and the whole factory to get CSA certified, which bypasses. So now basically all our units are automatically allowed in Ontario and Quebec.
Who is the ideal client for a tiny home? Is it families or is it more suited to couples and individuals? Who are tiny homes for?
Tiny homes are for quite a few different people and different opportunities. There are younger people coming into a realty market that can't afford things. They can come in at a tiny home level, very well afford it, have a tiny spot and grow with it. They can add on to it and grow that way. Then you have the mainstream where people can look at this as a pool house outside, as an office outside, homeschooling their kids. You could have a massage therapy business outside. We have models that don't even require a building permit. We have other models that schools are going to be able to use for larger classrooms that have heat and coolness and are healthy. Then you look at where people are downsizing from the regular realty market. And this is an older group of people. They really don't want to give up everything, but they might be okay with taking equity from their home, buying a small, tiny home or two, put it together for what they want, and renting out their larger home or having the rest of their family in. There are so many different opportunities. It's really something for everyone because you can customize it to your needs.
Right. So in that sense, it could be used as an ADU, so an accessory dwelling, and it also can be used as house hacking, as you said, where you can either stay in the tiny home, rent out your house, or vice versa. Maybe you want to stay in your house, but you need some extra income, so you could put this secondary property on your lot, rent it out, and help, pay some of the bills. So lots of versatility, I'm finding.
Helping the housing situation. There aren't enough places for people to live. So if people can have huge backyards they're not using for anything and look at it a little differently, they realize they can help with this situation.
Right. Okay. So how does a tiny home compare to living in a traditional home?
Way less footprint for the economy. It's great. You have what you need, where you need it, and as big as you need it. It doesn't really compare because if you look at the houses we all live in, we rarely use every single room. Why not give that space up and not have to worry about the payments for it, all the utilities for it, and enjoy, in most cases, the tiny homes bring you closer to nature, and it's quite nice.
Okay, so that just makes me think of another use. You could put it, if you have a cottage lot and maybe you haven't had the opportunity to build the cottage or it's too expensive, you could put it on that type of location as well and use it as a cottage, right?
It's also another really, I don't know if you're familiar, but there's underutilized home tax now that the government introduced. So if, let's say, a person lives alone in a 3-bedroom house, they have to pay extra tax. So if you are living alone and you would like to still keep your property for equity, for, building your family's net worth and value, adding an additional dwelling unit and living in that dwelling unit and renting out the main house to a family of 3 members, you actually save on tax as well. I know it's crazy, but it exists in Toronto. We have underutilized home tax now. So.
Mm-hmm. So with any type of thing in life, there are always pros and there's cons, right? So I'm curious, what are some of the highlighted benefits of living in a tiny house? And what are some of the cons of living in a tiny house?
Okay, so the benefits, obviously the environmental impact. You reduce your environmental footprint significantly, reduce your accumulation of stuff that you don't need significantly. You also live at a significantly lesser monthly expense than what you would usually live if you were in a conventional home, in terms of monthly bills, in terms of maintenance, in terms of cleaning, in terms of keeping up that property. Those are the biggest benefits. It also brings people together. It gives people an opportunity to live together. Multi-generational living is becoming a big thing now. A lot of people are looking back. It was a really big thing in the 1900s, and then it kind of went away, became all single family zoning. But now a lot of families are getting back to living together with their loved ones and enjoying their retirement while taking care of the grandkids, for example. If my parents would ever want to move to Southeast Oakville, it would be extremely difficult for them to buy a property that they can actually afford, because even a tear down house in where I am is $3 million. So for someone like my parents, if I want them to be close by, and if they don't want to live in a small condo, the only opportunity I can offer them is to live in my backyard. We can share the property. They can come over anytime they want. They can take care of the kids. They can spend time with their grandkids. They can hang out in the backyard, enjoy all the multi-generational living benefits, and yet they have their own space. They have their own living room, their own kitchen. They can close the door and they can enjoy their privacy.
Okay.
The cons are, obviously, you do have to adapt and change your lifestyle. You do have to learn to live and enjoy living with less. So if you are a hoarder, then this may not be the best solution for you.
Okay, fair enough. And have you found that over the recent years that there's an increased demand in this type of housing? Like,
Absolutely.
Yes.
so the number of tiny homes for sale, you would say, has increased.
There are quite a few more that you'll see on every level. Somebody wants to sell one. Somebody wants to move what they have to somewhere else. Somebody wants to trade up for something 4 seasons instead of just 2 seasons. They're seeing the possibilities of having a tiny place to live, but they want more out of it. Where what we offer is all 4 seasons. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's warm. It's cool. It's everything you need when you need it. And it can be used in so many options. So people are looking and they're shuffling around now with what has been available. Some people are just thinking, no, I don't want a bunkie. Well, this is absolutely the furthest away from a bunkie. They have to realize what Habitat 28 offers and then make a good choice from there.
Right. So what would you say are some of the most common misconceptions that people have about living in a tiny home?
Number one, I feel people still think that it's a trailer on wheels. When you say tiny home, a lot of people, because it has been for a while, there were tiny homes on wheels until fairly recently they became not on wheels. They started being built on foundation and helical piles as a permanent modular structure. A lot of people are still not understanding completely the wide area of options that are out there and the wide area of benefits of having one of those on their property. They don't even know that they actually can have it on their property. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, really, I can have this on my own lot? I'm like, yeah. So it's just, I feel, but what the whole industry has moved, I would say 1,000 miles in the last 1 year. And it's expected to quadruple in another 3-4 years. So it's just a new way of living and it's a new way of building. We just can't build enough homes and fast enough on site anymore. With the amount of new people coming in and with the amount of shortage of the houses that we have right now, there's no way conventional construction on site is going to be able to keep up. The modular construction needs to come in and supplement and start bringing in these houses ready built, cutting construction time in half, cutting costs by 40%. All of these things, we need to take a look and make the industry better, not be stuck in, this is what we were building in 1950s and we're going to continue doing that. No, we have to keep our eyes open to the new construction technology, to the new ways of building better, faster, cheaper, and more environmentally friendly ways of building homes.
Okay. So what choices does a consumer have if they're considering purchasing one of these? Do they just have to go in and pick it as is, or are there choices that they're able to select both in terms of the exterior of the property and in terms of the interior of the property? How does that work?
There are quite a few choices that can be made in the colors of the outside, a vertical, a diagonal, a pattern to the outside. There are LED light strips that go around the windows on the outside. So you can choose a lot of different color combinations, have it all the same. Tons of windows. You go in on the inside, you're given a choice of the finish on your walls, what the shower floor will look like. And these are all high-end picks. Usually a package is shown to you that would complement everything all together. And then if that's what you're after, then it just works, because from one room to the next, everything just flows nicely.
Okay. So at the beginning, Aura, you mentioned that these homes are made of steel and of wood construction. So in terms of the outside of the home, am I looking at like a metal box, or what is it that I get?
No, we have a combination of, like you see the one behind me,
Mhm.
that's a kind of typical finish that we have. We do combination of metal cladding as well as WPC siding to give a more earthy look to the units and more Canadian look as well, because Canadians love wood and they love building with wood and they like the look of wood. So we have these finishes, but it also depends on where the unit is going and what it has to match. If the homeowner comes with the picture of their house, we will find something to match to complement their primary dwelling with the additional dwelling units with colors and with textures on our finishes. You can choose from wide array of different colors and different finishes.
Okay. And I'm curious, are there any communities that have been established that are strictly tiny homes? Have we got to that point yet?
We are working on those, and there are a few already that I established all over. Especially a lot of them are in a Muskoka and Northern Ontario and Ottawa region is much more further advanced because their regulations have been more forward thinking for longer time than the GTA. And we do have a lot more municipalities that are open to welcoming tiny home communities as well as including tiny home pockets, which means that if there is a underutilized piece of land, you can insert a tiny home pocket. It's like a condo building on the side with the amenities and a co-working space in the front, and then 8 to 10 tiny houses with gardens and parking and children's playgrounds in the middle. Really, really nice, really, really sophisticated, really, really polished way of living, but extremely affordable for the homeowners as well as for the city. It allows to maximize the use of a land, and they can be on a land lease option. They can be on a purchase land, and those are popping up a lot more and more. Kingston, for example, there's one already in development. A lot in BC, in Ontario, Caledon, Mono, Hamilton area. We have a lot.
A lot of the other areas that don't have any communities are begging for them. You see them on social media. Who knows of a community? I want a tiny home. I want to be with other people in tiny homes. So we're trying to pull these people together and make it possible for areas that are complementary to how this process works.
Okay, that's great. So if someone is considering purchasing a tiny home, what are some of the things that they need to think about?
Where to put it? The main thing.
Okay.
Yes, where to put it. And also, it always starts with the why. When somebody and they say, or to Wendy, and they say, hey, I want to buy a tiny house, we always ask them, why are you looking at a tiny home? What is your plan? Are you looking to add value to your property? Are you looking for downsizing? Are you looking for your children? Are you looking for renters, for your cottage property, for your office, for your institutional? And based on that, then we find out the right model that will suit that need. And after that, we conduct a site suitability assessment for every single customer. And we tell them that this is your property and this is what will be allowed. And we combine the two, the why and the what will be allowed, and we select the best model that needs.
So if someone is thinking about buying a tiny home, from the time that they select their model to the time that it's completed, what are we looking at? Is it weeks, months, years?
Right now, about 4 to 6 months.
So you do have to be forward thinking.
But just like with every construction project. But the beauty of modular is this. When you want to build something on site, your first thing is you have to get architectural drawings made, which takes about 4 months for the architect. Then you apply to the city, which takes another 4 months. And only then you can start building on site. When you come to us, we already have the drawings. It's ready to be submitted to the city. We apply right away for the building permit. And while your building permit is being processed 4 to 6 months, we build the unit in the factory. The second your building permit is approved, the next week we show up with the modular home to your property. You cut down your application and construction time at least by half, because there's no way, because instead of starting construction after getting the permit, your construction is finished after getting.
Right. And who actually goes to get that permit? Is it the home buyer? Do you help them with that? How does that work?
We can help them if they need a third party in any area at all. We have very apt people that we can suggest and help them through the whole process. Or if they're a little more knowledgeable and have done things like this before, they're welcome to do it on their own.
Okay. Habitat Renee does pay the architect fees for the application to handle the building permit application.
Okay. So, and I'm just thinking about it. So if I am living in an urban area and I've got my neighbors pretty close to me on either side, and I'm wanting to bring this tiny home in, which is, you said, like around 430 square feet, something like that. But maybe I've only got 3 or 4 feet between me and my neighbor's house. How do they bring those homes into my backyard?
First of all, if you have an assessment done, your yard, as you described it, might not be big enough for a home of that size. But when we can decide with you what size, there's a crane that will come and lift it up over top your house and put it in the yard.
Okay. So, because I know a lot of the houses in Toronto too, they're not very wide, but they could be deep, right? So there's lots of space, but it's just how do you fit them between them, right? Like, how do you fit this house?
The logistics company, they do visit every single site and they do an assessment and they find the best solution of how to lower the unit into that yard. It's either from the front, from the back, depending on the access. But there's always been a way to find the best solution. And so far we've been doing good.
Okay, so that was my next question. Has there ever been a time where you had someone who wanted to put one of these homes in and it just was not feasible to do?
We had people whose properties are not either allowing or not big enough, or they have other reservations, but it was never logistics-wise. So far, we have been able to meet and navigate that part of things.
Okay. So if these houses are prefabbed at your manufacturing site, is that just on the exterior or is it the interior? So when the house comes to the lot, do they still have to finish things like bathrooms, kitchens, or is everything done and you're ready to move in?
Everything is done. When it comes to your lot and it gets set down and the servicing gets hooked up, you're handed a key. It's done.
So you're not living through that construction zone.
No,
None of it.
No, it's turnkey. It's turnkey.
The other thing too is if you're waiting for construction, weather is never cooperative. These are done inside where the temperature is controlled. They're all finished. They're all done. They're brought to you, whatever weather.
Right. And what about in terms of the utilities, the electrical, the water, the sewage? How does that work?
These can be hooked up to a main house that's already on the property. They can also be hooked up right straight out to where the water and sewer hookups are at the road. It all depends on what exists on the property and where you live.
Okay. And can it also be hooked up to a property that's rural and perhaps has septic systems and wells?
Yes, these things can be addressed.
The units are built, to connect into any system available, as long as there's enough power and water supply and there's enough outlet to remove the waste.
Okay. And roughly, what is the average price range of a tiny home?
About 100,000 if you do the cheapest and the most expensive one for the modules. And then we do custom projects depending on how big of a home people need. We can build up to 6,000 square feet.
Wow, that's big. So they're just putting these units together then, right? And if they are putting these units together, because when I'm thinking of a modular tiny home, I'm thinking bungalow style. Can they also stack them if you wanted to have upper levels?
Up to 4 levels right now.
Okay, so that's quite a bit. And when you're purchasing these homes, can they be financed and insured like you can with a traditional home, or is there some other things that you have to be aware of?
Yes, they can be financed, and yes, they can be insured.
They have to be treated like that.
Okay. So the financing would be traditionally through a regular bank or something that you'd have to do with a different type of lender?
It depends on every person's profile and their project. They could either finance. The two major banks that are working on additional dwelling unit primary lending right now is CIBC and Desjardins. However, that product is not out yet because they do need to run through their wheels and motions before they put out a new lending product. And now the most conventional one is either a HELOC or a home improvement loan or a personal loan. A lot of people find ways to finance them, and there's many creative products out there that they can either borrow from A- or a B lender.
Okay. So when someone is thinking about purchasing one of these homes, what other types of things should they consider? I'm thinking like, location, the size, what they want in the house. Like what should they come to you knowing so that you can help them accordingly?
They should know why they...
How to downsize.
Yeah, that also, it provided that they're going to live in it full time. It really depends on why they're looking at purchasing this tiny house. Are they looking to add value to their property in their backyard as an additional dwelling unit? Are they looking for a cottage property? Are they looking for multi-generational living? Are they looking for like a home office, a pool house, a fitness studio, institutional? You can run a food truck out of it, you can run a restaurant as an addition to the daycare business. So it's always why. What is the purpose of that unit? That is really one of the main determining factors on what kind of unit they will get and what will be in that unit. Do they need a kitchen? Do they need a bathroom? Is it going to be a classroom? Is it going to be an office? Is it going to be a residential house? So all of these things are very important. That's number one. And number two is the location. Do they have a location where they're going to place it? Do they need to source a location? Is it zoned for it? Is it big enough? Is it small enough? Believe it or not, in some places that's a question too. Is it allowed? Setback, septic well, conservation, all of these things we need to address, and we do all of that. We help to every single inquiry that they come here. We chase up all of this information with the city, with municipal offices, and with conservation authorities to help them to make sure and determine that they can actually do it.
Right. So that's great. So from what my understanding from our conversation is that these are very customizable units. And I'm curious, what's your personal favorite design features that are in the tiny homes that you produce and sell? We'll start with you, Wendy. What's your favorite feature?
The one right behind Aura has a glass balcony, a 4-foot glass balcony, if you can see it behind her head there. I love that. That's right off of a living and kitchen area. It's just beautiful. And it has the overhang, so you can have half outdoors, but you're out of the weather. It can be just so nice to take dinner out there and eat. I like that model. I've bought that model. I haven't got it quite yet.
You bought that model?
Yes, it's coming in.
Yes.
Yes.
Wendy bought this exact same model. It's coming to her property next week.
Next week. Wonderful. Wonderful. And Aura, what's your personal favorite feature?
My personal favorite feature are all the windows and spatial engineering of the unit. We have maximized every single % of glazing to the max that is allowed by Ontario Building Code. We have big skylight with automatic blinds. We also have a very unique spatial engineering. Even though it is a small space, we have designated areas for sleeping, for living, and for working, and for the washroom. So you don't feel like you sleep in your kitchen. I feel that is very important. So you mentally, you like walking from room to room. So if you get fed up of your living room, you can actually walk into your bedroom. And a lot of tiny homes don't have that. They just have one big open space. Here's the kitchen, here's the bed, and here's everything else. Everything is all in one. And sometimes they have a really unique kind of situation where you have to climb a ladder to get on the loft to go to bed, which I think is, especially for the elder people, is not a safest solution ever. I would never want to climb a ladder to go to bed, and I don't think that's the best idea. But that's just my personal preference.
Right. And what about the finishes, like in terms of kitchens? So what options do you have? Can you do things like backsplashes? What about bathrooms? What about the floorings? Like how much choice and customization do you have in those areas? Because always kitchens and bathrooms are important to most consumers, right?
Yes, we have set color packages they are coordinated by an interior designer to make sure that the cabinet colors, the countertop, the faucet, the backsplash kind of correlates and flows well with the rest of the color palette of the unit. And they get to choose color of the cabinet, the backsplash, like I said, the counters. We have beautiful quartz countertops and the mount sink. We have integrated electrical cooktop. We offer high-end vinyl flooring. We have a bamboo fiberboard wall system that we use, which is scratch resistant, moisture resistant, mold resistant, everything resistant basically. It's really high-end finish. And in the bathroom as well, they get to choose the vanity. They get to choose the color of the tile and the color of the walls.
In the bathroom, you will see high-end fixtures, a beautiful big shower, the rain shower head that comes out and over you and just gently down in a black contrast. It's beautiful inside. Shut that. There's extra heating, especially if it's a cooler weather or if you're just wimpy and you need the extra heating after a shower. It's there right where the towels hang. So you have nice warmed towels as soon as you get out of the bath. It's gorgeous, just gorgeous.
Well, that's pretty luxurious. Right. So what areas do you serve? Because you mentioned Ontario, you mentioned BC and Quebec. What areas do you serve?
We serve anybody that's interested and work out how interested are they. We've had interest from Jamaica, Florida.
Currently, we focus on Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia, and basically Canada-wide. We are in process of adding an additional certification and going into the United States market. We do have a lot of inquiries from the Caribbean because our units are actually hurricane resistant and typhoon resistant, and they are built to withstand extreme winds, which is pretty in demand down there. And they don't have anything that's been manufactured locally that could even remotely meet that standard and be so affordable. So we have a lot of inquiries from Costa Rica, Jamaica, Kitts and Nevis, lots of islands. Basically, all of the Caribbean is a big market for us. And if that will continue increasing, if we get a lot of orders from down there, we are in talks with someone in Mexico at potentially opening a secondary location for manufacturing down there too.
Okay, great. And could you maybe share a success story of a customer who purchased one of your tiny homes and how it impacted their lives?
My personal favorite is a story of a lady who sold her house, a big house in Hamilton just before COVID, and was placed in an old age retirement home by her children during COVID. However, she did not enjoy living in a retirement home. She did not like to be told when to eat, when to get up, what to do and what not to do. So she just left the retirement home and rented herself a room in one of the houses in Ancaster. After a while, she started looking at tiny home options and she reached out to me. I went to her house because she doesn't do email nor cell phone, so it's all landline and regular mail. I went to her house, I met with her, I brought her to the sales office. We looked at the model unit. She selected the unit that she really liked, and We ended up building it for her, and then she wanted to place it in her children's backyard. However, that didn't work out. We ended up finding a tiny home community for her, which is not too far from Orangeville. And she's actually been living there now for a few months. And she is delighted. She's so happy. She calls me and says, I'm finally at peace. I finally have a home, because I felt that I was homeless for 5 years after selling her house and in between the transition, old age home, renting a room. And so it's really life-changing for her. And I feel so honored to be part of that journey and to give her an opportunity to enjoy her retirement and all final years basically in a beautiful space next to a river overlooking nature walks, and everything is 5 minutes away. And she's just so happy to be there. It's one of the most special stories that I think I've ever worked on, and I most likely ever will.
That's great. So what one parting piece of advice would you give our listeners if they are considering purchasing a tiny home?
If you're thinking of purchasing, do it soon. This is exploding. Get your place in line at the factory. Pick out your options. You'll have it ready in 4 to 6 months.
And how much money do they need to put down as a deposit in order to start this whole process?
$1,000 deposit holds a place in line for you at the factory. At the end of 5 days, you'll get asked, are you sure you want to do this, or have you changed your mind? You can get your $1,000 back. If you're going forward, that's when you start picking out your options, your colors, your tiles, finishes, flooring, all of that.
Okay. And what is the pay structure once the building begins?
The process works. They can choose their structure of the payment plan. They can either pay in 25% installments until the unit is delivered, which is usually just like it works exactly the same as pre-construction project. Balance to 25% at the time of order, and then 25% in 60 days, 25% in 90 days, and final 25% on the pre-delivery inspection day. Or they can finance after the first 25% deposit.
Okay. And if someone is interested in a tiny home, are they able to come to your manufacturing site to actually see some physical models, or is this all pictures and things on a website?
Sorry, we do have a sales office in our factory in Brantford, Ontario, and people are welcome to book an appointment through our website and come and meet with one of our sales teams, myself or Wendy or someone else, and they can tour the model home, they can get all of their questions answered, and they can reserve the unit with us on the spot.
They can look at them in different stages of being built, which is interesting.
So how can our listeners learn more about your company or explore your tiny home offerings? How can they contact you?
Just look at the website, habitat28.com. Phone numbers are there. Emails are there. Call us.
Okay, great. I'll make sure to put all of that contact information in the show notes. So if our listeners are looking for some additional information, they can just reach out to you. Thank you so much for shedding so much light and insight on the whole tiny house movement. It is definitely interesting, and I think is adaptable to so many different people in so many different segments of life phases, right? And so I think it's interesting if someone has, some concerns of what their options are. This is definitely one that they might want to check out to see if it works for themselves and their families, right?
Exactly. It's a great option for many families looking for whether it's an additional space or additional income or cottage property. They may have a dream of owning a cottage, but they don't really have the budget for a big cottage, but they still would like to explore this option. And that's really good opportunity too.
Well, thank you again so much for sharing your time and your insights. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in.